Dozens of people marched down State Street, demanding alternatives to fossil fuels.
Climate change is the biggest threat facing our nation and the entire world.
They're among thousands protesting around the world as leaders gathered in Paris for the climate summit called COP21. Nearly 200 nations signed a non-binding agreement to rein in greenhouse gas emissions. But for these demonstrators, it's not enough.
There's a company that wants to stop climate change by sucking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
There is a magic machine that sucks carbon out of the air, costs very little, and builds itself. It's called a tree.
One of our plants does the work of 40 million trees.
Plant a tree, trees for America.
It's called carbon engineering, and it uses a combination of giant fans and complex chemical processes to remove CO2 from the air in a procedure known as direct air capture.
We have such a huge problem with CO2 already in the atmosphere that if we have a mechanism to collect it at large scale, it will give us so much more flexibility in addressing climate change.
So the idea that you can have this carbon dioxide knob, that turning up and down is just an illusion.
And we'll start to address all of those emissions that occurred yesterday, the day before, all the way back into the industrial age.
The company is backed by Bill Gates, as well as the oil giants Chevron, BHP, and Occidental.
It didn't mention the fact that we need to leave 80% of fossil fuel reserves underground, that fracking and other extreme extraction techniques cannot be part of the deal to get us safely away from climate change.
Rebecca Klassen with Food and Water Watch says the future of the planet relies on local efforts.
Oil companies are looking to drill 800 or 900 new oil wells in this county at exactly the moment when we need to be transitioning to a 100% renewable economy.
Whenever we came up with this term clean energy, I think it screwed up people's minds. Now they don't understand. Financial guys got on stage and said, oh, we're going to rate companies in terms of their CO2 output. And we're going to say this company puts out a lot of CO2 and financial markets are magical and all of a sudden the CO2 will stop being emitted. And I was like, okay, how are you going to make steel?
Hello, I'm Severn Suzuki speaking for ECHO, the Environmental Children's Organization.
My name is Greta Thunberg. I speak on behalf of Climate Justice Now.
We've raised all the money to come here ourselves, to come 5,000 miles.
How dare you?
To tell you adults you must change your ways.
Coming up here today, I have no hidden agenda. I am fighting for my future. Losing my future is not like losing an election or a few points on the stock market. I am here to speak for all generations to come. I am here to speak on behalf of the starving children around the world whose cries go unheard. I am here to speak for the countless animals dying across this planet because they have nowhere left to go.
I am afraid to go out in the sun now because of the holes in our ozone.
If you are a millennial, you've probably spent your whole life hearing about the hole in the ozone layer.
In 2015, about 30 years after the protocol was signed, the ozone hole reached the largest size ever. But since that peak, due mostly to volcanic eruptions that spew bromine and other ozone-depleting gas, scientists have finally started to see the ozone layer repair itself.
I'm afraid to breathe the air because I don't know what chemicals are in it. And now we hear of animals and plants going extinct every day, vanishing forever.
The top 10 terrifying animals that lived alongside prehistoric man. There were many species of them, and most of them had died before humans first appeared.
In my life, I have dreamt of seeing the great herds of wild animals, jungles and rainforests full of birds and butterflies. But now I wonder if they will even exist for my children to see.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
All this is happening before our eyes, and yet we act as if we have all the time we want and all the solutions. I'm only a child, and I don't have all the solutions. You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer.
The ozone layer repair itself.
A study published in Science this year found the hole had decreased in size from the year 2000, and most of that decrease was specifically because of the Montreal Protocol. International policy for the win.
You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct.
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all part of a family. I'm only a child, yet I know we are all in this together. In my anger,
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
I am not blind, and in my fear,
Our house is on fire.
I I'm not afraid of telling the world how I feel.
I had started a club, and this was really a group of girls who really wanted to do something for the planet in the broadest terms. And how we started was, well, we needed to educate ourselves.
Children like me are giving up their education to protest.
We make so much waste. We buy and throw away, buy and throw away.
All you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth.
And yet northern countries will not share with the needy. Even when we have more than enough, we are afraid to share. We are afraid to let go of some of our wealth.
Fund.
We live the privileged life with plenty of food, water, and shelter.
And yet I'm one of the lucky ones.
And time with some children living on the streets. This is what one child told us. I wish I was rich.
If I were a rich man.
And if I were,
I wouldn't have to work hard.
I would give all the street children food.
I'd build a big tall house with rooms by the dozen right in the middle of the town.
Clothes.
I'd fill my yard with the chicks and turkeys and geese and ducks for the town to see and hear.
Medicines.
If I were a rich man.
Shelter.
I wouldn't have to work hard.
And love and affection.
Are you really enjoying that?
Nah, needs garlic.
If a child on the streets who has nothing is willing to share
empty words,
why are we who have everything still so greedy? I am only a child, yet I know if all the money spent on war
So this is a just war.
was spent on finding environmental answers.
Well, what is the question?
Ending poverty.
Now why didn't I think of that?
And finding treaties. What a wonderful place this earth would be.
What a wonderful world this would be.
Parents should be able to comfort their children by saying, everything's going to be all right.
Good night, sleep tight.
It's not the end of the world.
Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
And we're doing the best we can.
And I did the best I could.
But I don't think you can say that to us anymore. My dad always says,
The Great Barrier Reef does have environmental threats, but cyclones ain't one of them.
All right, that was one, I have to admit that was suggested to me by an Australian. And it is true. I mean, it may be a mistake. I don't know.
Suzuki just plain makes things up.
Corporations are not people. They shouldn't be funding. They shouldn't be funding campaigns at all. They shouldn't be allowed to lobby governments.
Yeah, those craven politicians, eh?
Like Dalton McGuinty, the former Liberal Premier of Ontario, with whom David Suzuki cut a TV ad. Suzuki is extremely connected with power and money and politics. He's not just a 1%er, he's a 0.1%er. His homes combined are worth more than $10 million. His David Suzuki Foundation, which is a $9.3 million corporation. He has 73 staff on the payroll, 73. And he's bitching about corporations? Oh, and lobbyists too.
you are what you do,
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
not what you say.
If I were a rich man.
What you do makes me cry at night. You grown-ups say you love us.
Dad! Stand up for me! Tell them I didn't do it!
But I challenge you.
I challenge you.
Make your actions reflect your words.
You know, I'm not a guy that thinks about conspiracies, but I'm wondering whether our Prime Minister thinks he's going to be creating new categories of crime like eco-terrorism or, as he calls us, environmental radicals, radical extremists.
The funny thing, of course, is earlier in the show, he was calling for jail for people who disagree with him. Maybe he's projecting a bit.
Severn Suzuki is the daughter of a wealthy, influential environmentalist, a politically connected man.
Greta Thunberg is the daughter of famous wealthy parents. They are well connected too. In particular, her mom is politically active.
Both the kids promote the United Nations agenda, stated by Kofi Annan, Ban Ki-moon, and now Guterres, as it clear by their words. That's why those kids are allowed up there, speaking out for that agenda.